Baborgamos. All in all, Chimney Imp. Meanwhile, Chimney Imp, we have Chimney Imp. Commander Zone. Put their commander back in the commander zone. And they end up making Dragon Rage Channeler all around. Dragon Rage Channeler, namely Eliminari's Call, like Elidamar's Call, Eladrami's Call. Cards like Eladrami's Call, Elidamar's Call. Pila Pala, you make Pila Pala blue, Pila Pala. Eladrin, Throne of Eladrin, Throne of Eladrin, Throne of Eldrin, the Throne of Eldrin, or Eldritch Evolution. If you had to do something far much harsher, Fibblethip, Harbinger of Destruction, Harbinger of Tides. Now, Harbinger is bad enough. Harbinger of Tides. Harbinger of Tides. Avacyn restored. Avacyn restored. Avacyn, the Angel of Hope. Avacyn, Angel of Hope. Avacyn safety. Avacyn the Purifier, the Church of Avacyn herself. Avacyn the Archangel. Avacyn restored drafts. Avacyn restored. Avacyn, the Church of Avacyn in her flight. Avacyn restored. Avacyn's Church. Avacyn, the threat of Avacyn's unmaking. Without Avacyn's guidance or magic, Avacyn would no longer be there. Next, we have Fastbound. Fastbound or Manabound, they would love to have Fastbound. Fastbound was just Fastbound. Whereas a turn 1 Fastbound via Fastbound's ability. Fastbound deals 1 damage to you. Fastbound is less. There's no denying that Fastbound is Fastbound. Fastbound is Fastbound. Fastbound combining Fastbound is legal nowadays. Soulbounded creature, soulbound cards, soulbound. Despite her generally self-serving attitude, it was Lillian Vess, the necromancer Lillian Vess. Lillian herself, Lillian Vess, Planeswalker Lillian Vess. Lillian of the Veil, Lillian such as Lillian Vess. The desperate Liliana of the Veil, and Lillian of the Veil, both Lillian and one Lillian of the Veil. Lillian herself, Lillian. Whereas Lillian Vess, Lillian's mentor, Lillian was shocked. This did not stop Lillian. Murdered several servants, including Lillian. Creating the Wolfer. Wolfar Silverheart. Cards like Nahir, Forged in Fury. Nahir, as such, Nahir. The Sanatorium in play. So if you activate Sanatorium, Gaia Reach Sanatorium, or Ark of Orazga. Archetypes. The branded archetypal depiction, a whole archetype, some of the other cards in the archetype, specific deck archetype, shared archetype name, draft archetype, the deck archetype, the archetype. Ark of Orazga, the Ark itself. Ark can also be chapped. Ark saw tons. Ark of Orazga, Archangel of Thune. This will trigger Archangel, Arch-like Phoenix, Teferi, Temporal Archmage. Caterhoof Behemoth, you would use Caterhoof Behemoth, and that's Caterhoof Behemoth. But Caterhoof Behemoth, this has led to Caterhoof Behemoth. This time frame would go on to be known as Kirsmu. The destruction of the Hellvault, the Hex Vault. The Downyard Temple. This is similar to Downyard Behemoth, Nephalia Downyard, the Gatewatcher member, Cathilda Donhart Martyr, the Trivals, Pheresis, the fan favorite girlfriends Hal and Alina, Darvel Kane, and Hydroid Crassus, something like Bed Evil, Swords of Plowshare, and all activated abilities you activate cost 2 to less activate. But the life gain off of Amath, the Balustrade Spy. They need to use Balustrade Spy. Or you could bring back the Oslos Oracle. This is because Future Sight was a weird set. Altar of the Dementia, the amazing card Bazaar Bahad, Now, life from Loam, Hogok, arisen necropolis. Hogok right now, but Hogok, arisen necropolis. Accolades of Life Bounty, Modern Horizon card. Most of these old reserve list cards are rifling on Oath of Druid. Maguses, we have Magus of the Will. We have Magus of the Balance. The other Maguses, Magus of the Wheel. Magus of the Future is basically the best Maguses. This is also one of the only Maguses non-Magus version. Magus of the Bazaar, Magus of the Future. The Magus, basically all of the Maguses suffer. This is true of a lot of the Maguses. Sacrifice Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Will, Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Will, Magus of the Future, the Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Will, Magus of the Will, Magus of the Will, Magus of the Bazaar, Magus of the Will, more so than almost every other Magus, Magus of the Future, Magus of the Future, Magus of the Scroll, Magus of the Future, Magus of the Moon, Magus of the Future, Magus of the Future, Magus of the Will, Magus of Balance, Magus of the Bazaar, Magus of the Moon, Magus of the Bazaar, Magus of the Bazaar, Magus of the Candelabra. Unfortunately for the Magus, Magus of Candelabra, Magus of Candelabra, Candelabra of Taros, Candelabra of Tuanos, Magus of the Scroll, the Magus of the Balance, Magus of the Scroll, Magus of the Moat and a Magus, any Magus. Magus of the Moat, Magus of the Tabernacle of the Pendril Vale, the Tabernacle of Pendril Vale. Magus of the Will, Magus of the Moat, Magus of the Tabernacle, the Magus design. Maguses, there is one Magus, Magus of the Moon. Magus of the Moon, the other Magus is Magus of the Moat, Magus of the Moon, any other Magus, Magus of the Moon, Magus of the Tabernacle, Magus of the Moon, Magus of the Moon, Magus of the Moon, Niv Magus Elemental, Niv Magus, State of Normalcy, Relative Normalcy, Voice of Providence, Humans. This is a 7/7 legendary demon with a mana cost of 5 and 3 black. Veto, Thorn of Duskrose, the Hedron Network, Hedron Archive, Hedron Array, a chunk of the central Hedron Stone, the Hedron Fragment, the Hedrons. Stitcher Geralf, Sakani, Planeswalker, Gorok Wildspeaker, the Chain of Veil. Skurdag's High Priest, the once ancient and obscure Skurdag's called for Skirdag to work. Zerdra the Dawnwalker and Zidra the Dawnwaker. Zidra, Slippery Boggle. It started with a certain Boggle. The Boggle players will just go for the Boggle, Slippery Boggle. These Boggle decks, Boggles in Modern. A Boggles, Boggle styled Slippery Boggle. Slippery Boggle, a creature like Slippery Boggle. Of course, these Boggle decks, the Boggle, Slippery Boggle, Boggles. A Diabolic Edict, Diabolic Tutor, Sylvan Caryatid, and Sylvan Caryatid, over Sylvan Caryatid. Geist of St. Taft. The best answer to Geist of St. Taft was Geist of St. Taft, Coldrith Rebirth, Sojourn's Companion, Integral, Chandra Nalar, Chandra, Flipping Chandra, Transform Chandra, almost always be better than Chandra, all the Hyper Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh. You untap Chandra, then if Chandra, Roaring Flame, Chandra Ablaze, other Chandra cards, such as Chandra Flamecaller, Chandra's Loyalty. Finally, Chandra Ablazes, it allows you to cast any number of red instants and sorceries from your graveyard while paying their mana costs. An opponent will know to kill your Chandra's highest Chandra Ablaze. While Chandra Ablaze, Chandra Torch of Defiance, Chandra's Incinerator, Chandra's Embercat, Chandra Planeswalker Spell, Chandra Nalar. We need not look any further than Chandra Nalar. Chandra's backstory, the origins Chandra, young Chandra. Barrow killed Chandra's father and convinced Chandra in the gaslight in a barrel. And set Chandra's love of fire, Chandra's backstory, Chandra's memory. Chandra lied to Gideon, easily impressed by Chandra. In the chaos, Chandra, in using her most potent spell, inadvertently fulfilled the final conditions needed to unseal the Eldrazi menace into the plane of Innistrad. Because the Eldrazi were not merely monsters native to Innistrad. Chandra for now, the new head of the Abbot Colonel Keep, Chandra Nallard, returning to her studies on Colonel Keep, the monks in the Colonel Keep. One of which was Ugin the Spear Dragon. Ugin the Spear Dragon, Nicol Bolas, Dragon God. Cards like Bolas's Citadel, Nicol Bolas, as Bolas is no exception. Still, Nicol Bolas, Bolas's Citadel. Eidolon of the Great Revel. Eidolon of the Great Revel. Eidolon, this means that Eidolon is better. Eidolon feels less. Eidolon's ability, the card would eventually be outmodded. Kaldheim, the plane of Kaldenheim. Kaldenheim, the Kladheim set Lyre, disciple of the drowned. Lyre's second ability, one of the best homes for Lyre, and Lyre, play your Lyre anyway. Lyre, Lenora Elves. Lenora Elves, overpriced Lenora Elves. Lenora Elves, Lenora Elves, Lenora Elves. The infamous Takano's Cavalry. Call the Cavalry, Takano's Cavalry. Cavalry, Takano's Cavalry once again. The card Gias's Cradle. Gias's Cradle, Gia's Liege. Gias's Cradle. Gias's Will, Gwenna, Eyes of Gia, Gia's Cradle. With the assistance of Silmagar the Drifting Death. Tasigir the Golden Fang, Tasigir Euro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Euro, Protector Euro's other abilities. And of course, Euro is a powerhouse. Euro, Hidesugu consumes all. Hidesugu, and thus get Merit Lodge right away. Kill the Merit Lodge token, you create a Merit Lodge. Merit Lodge, Merit Lodge. Merit Lodge, make a Merit Lodge, and make a Merit Lodge right then. In a vacuum, Merit Lodge, a Merit Lodge. Merit Lodge instantly freed Merit Lodge. Merit Lodge, now Merit Lodge right away. Merit Lodge, and be able to find them before Merit Lodge kill the Merit Lodge token. Next, we have Microsynth Lattice. Microsynth Lattice's ability, it's worth mentioning that Microsynth Lattice existed. Microsynth Lattice, MTG Go's put these mechanics onto MTG Go. If you don't know, MTG Go, from there, Ojotai formed the Ojotai clan with Dragon Lord Ojotai, or Dragon Lord Ojotai. Ordic Blood Cursed. Ordic makes it a lot worse. Ordic Master Tactician, and Ordic Lunarch Marshal. And Ordic, this makes Ordic Blood Cursed. This is a good way to use Ordic. Ordic can work Paradoxal outcome, a single paradoxal outcome. Peregrine Drake, target Peregrine Drake, Mnemonic Wall, Peregrine Drake with 2 power, 5 toughness, Peregrine Drake, and Peregrine Drake, Quasali Pride Mage. 2 copies of Quasali Pride Mage. It's Quasali Pride Mage's Quasali. The main points against Quasali Pride Mage, passed on Quasali Pride Mage. Quasali Pride Mage still sees 1/1 green Saproling creature tokens. Saprolings tribal. Create a 1/1 green Saproling creature token, the Saprolings. Shirahazad, the infamous Shirahazad. A player cast Shirahazad. Shirahazad. Why not let Shirahazad in? Shirahazad, Silver Overlord. Any silver spells, silver of course, Siphon Silver, Silver Dex, Silver's Silver Artifact Creature. Finally, the first silver, Khans Takir, the Takir block, the Plane of Takir, the Takir block, Takir. While there are locations on Takir that draw back to Mongseng, Thalia's on the board. Thalia died to Thalia in combat. Thalia, this combines the Thalia's and Thalian's Lieutenant. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Thraben Inspector. Empty the Warrens, half and empty the Warrens. Willy Goblin. It is Willy Goblin, a card like Willy Goblin, actual success in tournament play. Paired alongside the board-wide haste enabler, Master Tactician allows how to choose how creatures block, and tons of other land tuners thanks to Mnemonic Tuner's sheer strength. Players can spend mana as though they were mana of any color. Forced to keep a 1 or 2 hand land hand, the Planeswalker 4 Rose would die. For example, Abazan Ascendancy, many Azban commanders, the Abzan houses were led by Anafeza the Foremost, Acerak the Archlich. The idea behind Acerak, when you cast an Acerak, each time you cast Acerak, find a way to loop Acerak, trying to break Acerak, Adeline, Resplendent Cathar. Adeline, Oubliette does original Oubliette until Oubliette leaves the battlefield. Oubliette's original effect. Target by Oubliette if Oubliette ever leaves, as long as Oubliette is Oubliette. This made Oubliette the new version of Oubliette since Oubliette was printed, mainly because Oubliette stay phased out until Oubliette is gone. Arkema, Angel of Wrath, Aldrazi Obligator. Ice Age and Alliance had come out over a decade prior to Cold Snap. Pioneer is Amalia Benavides Aguirre. The creature Dreadhorde Anarchist earned itself the nickname Ancient Carp. Anjay Bane of Dishonor, Tide Hollow Scholar, and Skyclave Apparition. such as Arcane Adaption. Cards Plane of Argentum, the Plane of Argentum. They'll only be able to attack with one of their mana creatures. Gorthian Enchantress. She found herself in direct conflict with Artarka, World Render, Dragonlord Artarka, bringing Artarka her lunch and dinner. Eventually Artarka purged the Temur other threats like Tazaret Artificer Master. You can make sure you draw Astral Recall. It doesn't have to tap to attack. Atrax Grand Unifier. Recur the card infinitely with Auroch Salvagers based around Auroch Salvagers. Autochthon Worm. This means rotating 180 degrees into Io's Essence.
And Valiant Rescuer.
You see, there was a card called Basalt Monolith, Baleful Strix, and hard to interact with favorably, bearing board wipes, powerful aggro creatures like Benilish Marshal, Bird of Paradise, Blighted Angel, and even though Blizzard has found a way to Ambassador Blorpity Bloop. Bogart Harbinger, the Monsters of Innistrad, both Orcish Bowmaster and Orcish Bowmaster. You don't have to try and draw another one to make your Brazelia. Brobeat, Broko Thief of Crowns. Really, Cage's son, Broko Carburetti Caterer. Then replace one of the Carthotic Reunion, a pseudo Cascade effect, Cascade. Brutal Cather transforms into the Cather, you exile target creatures in opponent control. Combining this card with cards like Caverns of Souls, key part of classic Magic. Costs only as much as the colorless mana pips on them. The eponymous Colossal Hammer, a card was colorless even if it had a colorless mana in its cost. The deck already plays Conflagrate, like Conflagrate. Demonic Constellation isn't really much of a consultation. Could appease to some. Counter the Annex. Counter Self itself. Most cumulative upkeep creatures. The cards with cumulative upkeep, Mystic Remove, Karn the Great Curator, Daxos, Blessed by the Sun, Consuming Darkon Soul. How do people make Death Shadows a threat? Death Shadows, Delvers of Secrets, Demon Horde Invasion. This is where Write and Song differentiate themselves, find some other way of differentiating it intended to differentiate. With Diviner Top's ability, this brings us to the set Domineria from 2018. Domineria, Droxgolf Captain, Dire Gaff Captain, Stormkirk Captain, and Stormkirk. Then you can pay 3 mana during your sorcery. Echoes of Eons in particular, Konda, Lord of Agenjo. Cards like Elvish Mystic and Baleful Strix both draw a card when they enter the field, for example. Pay 1 generic and 1 white mana and tap it to put an enchantment card from your hand onto the battlefield. It has Morbid, specifically at the end of each step. You'll be cheating out Urmcols and Urmacol the Eon's Torn. Decks that use limited sources of mana or even no mana at all, like the aforementioned Dredge deck, were essentially fond of the card. A reimagined version in Phyrexian Obliterator costs 4 black mana for essentially the same card. Experimental Synthesizer, the Experiment Synthesizer. Whenever a human deals damage to you, Mike blows it up. Or tap Mike and remove a +1/+1 counter for him. Fable of Mirror as the homunculus named Fibblethif. Despite being set on Fioria, that card was Frentic Ifrit. However, Frentic Sliver, another planeswalker named Freyalize, fixed version of the card, remove bands with others from my creatures. Until the card Flame Fusillade was printed. Flame Fusillade, Gaze of Granite.
Genpalm Incinerator. Whenever you cycle Genpalm, Genpalm Incinerator, a cycle of Genpalms, while Genpalm, including Genpalm, has seen much less play than Genpalm. This wouldn't work if Genpalm wasn't a Genpalm. All of these attributes together has led to Genpalm Incinerator.
Geralf's Message, Phyrexian, and the Gitrog Monster. It creates 3 1/1 Gobos, creatures like Goblin Matrone. For example, Gurmag Angular. Phyrexian Angel has 4 generic and 3 white mana. Thalia, Heretic's Cathar's tap-down ability. Hodin of Infinite Rage. This gothic horror themed set. Sigarda, Host of Heroines. However, Huntsmaster from Ikoria, a huge impact. Things like Incarnate, Kaya the Inexorable, and shuts down all of your opponent's instant speeds plays. 3/2 elemental invocation. It makes them vulnerable to Island's Walk. Ishin's Shade. That's printed in the Ixian block, rivals of Izalian. Up until recently, Izur Delver, characters like Jihora alongside his friend Jihori of the Gitu with the help of his old friend Jihoria, those of Jin Gataxis, Progress Tyrant. Jotun Grunt, which was then followed by Born of the Gods and Journey into the Nyx. Kaladis, Trader of Get, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Kaladis. It's also worth mentioning Karen Feeder, 5th Dawn's Kar Clan Ironworks. Kar Clan Ironworks, most clearly inspired by the Kemper Empire era. Lotus Cobra's keyword ability, Landfall. Kioria Best the Sea God, Kioria Best the Sea God, through a resolved Kioria Best the Sea God. Having learned from blocks like Kumigawa, it opened room for Life Drain to properly shine. Blind's Eyes Diamonds, Lodgestone Goldman, The Lost Mines of Pandelver, Loris the Dream Den, Loris the Dream Den, Loris the Dream Den. Lutra the Spellchaser, Lyra Dawnbringer have sort of gone out of favor over time. Lyra, as the Phyrexians invaded the whole multiverse in March of the Machines, not a card that has some way for the mana to cost no mana. Master of the Ethereum. Mercadian Mask, it didn't help that Mercadian Mask back in Mercadian Mask. Majestic Metamorphosis on turn 3. Grand Prix Milan cast it for free with Mind's Desires. Mnemonic Wall. Completely unknown plane of Mogsang. Monetary Swisspear. Murder at Karlov Manor. To search up Muskwood Nexus. Muskwood Nexus. Nago Bound by Honor. It's not even that much better than Nago. Narset Partner of Veils. Narset Partner of Veils. Necrotog. Kamigawa Neo Dynasty Commander decks. Ebony Al Netsuke, Ebony Al Netsuke, Ebony Al Netsuke. This standard had access to Nevinral's disc. Printed a new Capena. Kaya's Guile is nice enough. Interesting card with the cost we haven't seen much in Magic. Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. Nykthos Ramp. Oberoi Envoy. On-Math Locus of Creation, On-Math 4-color On-Math decks. Ormond Hall the Corruptor. Flip into Ormond Hall. A rather sizable boost in power. Someone always invents the Omnithopter, the Ornithopter. You do need a Roji Lifecaller, specifically blue-red decks. We have Palintron to abuse Palintron under most normal circumstances. Palintron, you're allowed to cast Palintron to make your Palintron leave Palintron. If Palintron is on the battlefield already, Palintron ability. Palintron mainly lives in the commander. Palladius Moors, the Ruiner. This card became legal in Pofter, immune to Pharesius, or Pi and Kira Nalar. A plains like Badlands. You may play 1 Phyrexian blue mana and remove a pull-up counter, 2 pull-up counters, 4 pull-up counters. Pongify, Portal of the Three Kingdoms. Blue is often thought of as the most powerful card in the game. Recycle Pride Spellbomb, the classic Prodigal Sorcerer, the game's first propic generic search effect. So while cards like Prowling Sapopard, Ravagan Nimble Pilferer, behind the namesake monkey Ravagan. With the printing of Ravagan Nimble Pilferer, Ravager of the Fails, thanks to Reban replacing itself with Reclamation Sage, Reoccurring Nightmare. As soon as the card resolves, you can bounce Nightmare to your hand before your opponents have a chance to do anything.
Couldn't think of a joke for this. Just want to make sure this information is correctly delivered. Returning Recurring Nightmare to your hand is part of the cost, not the effect. You don't wait for the ability to resolve to return it to your hand. You return it to your hand in order to activate the ability in the first place, which is why opponents can't get rid of Recurring Nightmare before you can activate the ability to save it. Paying the cost doesn't go on the stack, the ability does. No one can respond to paying a cost. They can only respond to the ability, trigger, or spell that goes on the stack.
Repudiate Replicate. Repudiate, heuristic studies, Rishadan Port is also too old, so Rishadan Port. One of the Root Wallaces, Sage Road Denizen. Sanctifer Envec. If you have 10 or more permanents at any point, you get the city's blessing for the rest of the turn. Galleon's ability. Galleon is just a really hard card to flip. Saprazan Raider. Value-based Silencia variants, or Silencia. Nourishing Showl. Shatterbang Brothers. Make Shirokai. Shun Yun, Silent Tempest, killed Shun Yun in the process. Sidisi, Blood Tyrant. Sidisi's. Ojotai, Soul of Winter. Bosenju, Who Endures, and Otowar, Soren Cities. A single, solitary card. Spell Sputter Sprite. Cast Sputter Sprite at any time. Somewhat periodic play. Spore Crow Thallid, thanks to stat-based actions. The card Stormforged Mystic. Start a family with Subiria. Sword in Truth and Justice. The Seed of Synod, Cobalt Taskmaster, Teferi the Time Raveler, Temporal Mystery.
It's a mystery, Scooby-Doo!
Temur's Battle Rage. Tendershot Dryad. Tetsmek, The Thing in the Ice. Thelion of Havenwood. Thunderbeak Regent, Thunderbeak's Trigger. Time Shifter. Your own Time Shifter's ability, Time Shifter. With 2 Time Shifters on the battlefield, there are 2 Time Shifters on the battlefield. But Time Shifter pushes Time Shifter, Tough Cast, Toxic Deluge. Threats like Tractus. People use cards like Transmography.
Ketria Triome.
Sasabo's Web. And Kozilek, Butcher of the Truth. Ulamog, the Infinite Grier. Could Uro be unbanned? Skull Clamped banned? The Quick banned Urbox players. Urza Tower. Valdrain of Sengir. The Plane of Vern. Warring factions on Vern. Kataki, War's Rage. While Hatili's similar ability, Werewood Symbiote. Windsweth Heath. Void Winnower. This is a 5/5 legendary dragon spirit with a mana cost of 4 and 2 green. Next up, we have Yorion the Sky Nomad. Yuriko Tiger Shadow. Zarathan Necromancer. There are commanders like Zelvar, Mission to Zendikar. His home Zalflir, Zuberi the Golden Feather. Hate bearers like Lavinia, Azoria's Renegade. That set is where Tashar was first printed. We have Aarakocra Sneak. For those unaware, each color in Magic the Gathering has an ally and enemy color. Comeback cards like Rise from the Dark Realms. You could throw all of the Thalids into a commander deck right now, but they have a couple of issues. First off, they don't really have a great commander.
Are you sure about that?
Lots of the Saproling cards see play and gave Gubero Spores decks. And then use Might of the Old Krosa, Sphinx of Steel Wind. However, there is a way to mitigate this. What's put Spectral Tailor so high? Are there any other
words I can mispronounce?
If so, we'd love to hear about them down in the comments below. Now, not to name names here, but I have seen some murmurs in the comments. A barrage of YouTube videos and Reddit posts were released bemoaning the death of Magic the Gathering. That may sound worrying, but honestly, that's pretty typical for a Magic set release. This may seem like an overreaction, and it kind of is, and it wasn't just one of the many times players have been hyperbolic about the state of the game. Some people will try to, actually me here, seemingly just because the designers of Homelands hated the player. Disgusting.